Chapter 3. Laughing Gas. "Are you quite sure he will be at home?" said Jane as they got off the bus. She and Michael and Mary Poppins. "Would my uncle ask me to bring you to tea if he intended to go out, I'd like to know," said Mary Poppins, who was evidently very offended by the question. She was wearing her blue coat with the silver buttons and the blue hat to match, and on the days when she wore these it was the easiest thing in the world to offend her. All three of them were on the way to pay a visit to Mary Poppins's uncle, Mr. Wigg, and Jane and Michael had looked forward to the trip for so long that they were more than half afraid that Mr. Wigg might not be in after all. "Why is he called Mr. Wigg? Does he wear one?" asked Michael, hurrying along beside Mary Poppins. "He is called Mr. Wigg because Mr. Wigg is his name and he doesn't wear one. He is bald," said Mary Poppins, "and if I have any more questions we will just go back home," and she sniffed her usual sniff of displeasure. Jane and Michael looked at each other and frowned, and the frown meant, "Don't let's ask her anything else or we'll never get there." Mary Poppins put her hat straight at the tobacconist's shop at the corner. It had one of those curious windows where there seemed to be three of you instead of one, so that if you look long enough at them you begin to feel you are not yourself, but a whole crowd of somebody else. Mary Poppins sighed with pleasure, however, when she saw three of herself, each wearing a blue coat with silver buttons and a blue hat to match. She thought it was such a lovely sight that she wished there had been a dozen of her, or even 30. The more Mary Poppinses, the better. "Come along," she said sternly, as though they had kept her waiting. Then they turned the corner and pulled the bell of number 3 Robertson Road. Jane and Michael could hear it faintly echoing from a long way away, and they knew that in 1 minute, or 2 at the most, they would be having tea with Mary Poppins's uncle, Mr. Wigg, for the first time ever. "If he's in, of course," Jane said to Michael in a whisper. At that moment the door flew open, and a thin, watery-looking lady appeared. "Is he in?" said Michael quickly. "I'll thank you," said Mary Poppins, giving him a terrible glance, "to let me do the talking." "How do you do, Mrs. Wigg?" said Jane politely. "Mrs. Wigg?" said the thin lady in a voice even thinner than herself. "How dare you call me Mrs. Wigg? No, thank you. I'm plain Miss Percimen, and proud of it. Mrs. Wigg, indeed." She seemed to be quite upset, and they thought Mr. Wigg must be a very odd person if Miss Percimen was so glad not to be Mrs. Wigg. "Straight up and first door on the landing," said Miss Percimen, and she went hurrying away down the passage, saying, "Mrs. Wigg, indeed," to herself in a high, thin, outraged voice. Jane and Michael followed Mary Poppins upstairs. Mary Poppins knocked at the door. Come in, and welcome," called a loud, cheery voice from inside. Jane's heart was pitter-pattering with excitement. "He is in," she signalled to Michael with a look. Mary Poppins opened the door and pushed them in front of her. A large, cheerful room lay before them. At one end of it a fire was burning brightly, and in the centre stood an enormous table laid for tea. 4 cups and saucers, piles of bread and butter, crumpets, coconut cakes, and a large plum cake with pink icing. "Well, this is indeed a pleasure!" A huge voice greeted them, and Jane and Michael looked around for its owner. He was nowhere to be seen. The room appeared to be quite empty. Then they heard Mary Poppins saying crossly, "Oh, Uncle Albert, not again! It's not your birthday, is it?" And as she spoke she looked up at the ceiling. Jane and Michael looked up too, and to their surprise saw a round, fat, bald man who was hanging in the air without holding on to anything. Indeed, he appeared to be sitting on the air, for his legs were crossed, and he had just put down the newspaper which he had been reading when they came in. "My dear," said Mr. Wigg, smiling down at the children and looking apologetically at Mary Poppins, "I'm very sorry, but I'm afraid it is my birthday," said Mary Poppins. "I only remembered last night, and there was no time then to send you a postcard asking you to come another day. Very distressing, isn't it?" he said, looking down at Jane and Michael. "I can see you're rather surprised," said Mr. Wigg, and indeed their mouths were so wide open with astonishment that Mr. Wigg, if he had been a little smaller, might almost have fallen into one of them. "I'd better explain, I think," Mr. Wigg went on calmly. "You see, it's this way. I'm a cheerful sort of man and very disposed to laughter. You wouldn't believe, either of you, the number of things that strike me as being funny. I can laugh at pretty nearly everything, I can." And with that, Mr. Wig began to bob up and down, shaking with laughter at the thought of his own cheerfulness. "Uncle Albert," said Mary Poppins, and Mr. Wig stopped laughing with a jerk. "Oh, beg pardon, my dear. Where was I? Oh, yes. Well, the funny thing about me is—" "All right, Mary, I won't laugh if I can help it." "That whenever my birthday falls on a Friday, well, it's all up with me. Absolutely U.P.," said Mr. Wig. "But why?" began Jane. "But how?" began Michael. "Well, you see, if I laugh on that particular day, I become so filled with laughing gas that I simply can't keep on the ground. Even if I smile, it happens. The first funny thought, and I'm up like a balloon. And until I can think of something serious, I can't get down again." Mr. Wig began to chuckle at that, but he caught sight of Mary Poppins's face and stopped the chuckle and continued. "It's awkward, of course, but not unpleasant. Never happens to either of you, I suppose?" Jane and Michael shook their heads. "No, I thought not. It seems to be my own special habit. Once, after I'd been to the circus the night before, I laughed so much that, would you believe it, I was up here for a whole 12 hours. I couldn't get down to the last stroke of midnight. Then, of course, I came down with a flop because it was Saturday and not my birthday anymore. It's rather odd, isn't it? Not to say funny. And now here it is Friday again and my birthday and you two and Mary P. to visit me. Oh, Lordy, Lordy, don't make me laugh, I beg of you." But although Jane and Michael had done nothing very amusing except to stare at him in astonishment, Mr. Wig began to laugh again loudly, and as he laughed he went bouncing and bobbing about in the air with a newspaper rattling in his hand and his spectacles half on and half off his nose. He looked so comic, floundering in the air like a great human bubble, clutching at the ceiling sometimes and sometimes at the gas bracket as he passed it, that Jane and Michael, though they were trying hard to be polite, just couldn't help doing what they did. They laughed. And they laughed. They shut their mouths tight to prevent the laughter escaping, but that didn't do any good. And presently they were rolling over and over on the floor, squealing and shrieking with laughter. "Really," said Mary Poppins, "really such behaviour." "I can't help it, I can't help it," shrieked Michael as he rolled into the fender. "It's so terribly funny. Oh, Jane, isn't it funny?" Jane did not reply, for a curious thing was happening to her. As she laughed, she felt herself growing lighter and lighter, just as though she were being pumped full of air. It was a curious and delicious feeling, and it made her want to laugh all the more. And then suddenly, with a bouncing bound, she felt herself jumping through the air. Michael, to his astonishment, saw her go soaring up through the room. With a little bump, her head touched the ceiling, and then she went bouncing along it till she reached Mr. Wig. "Well," said Mr. Wig, looking very surprised indeed. "Don't tell me it's your birthday too." Jane shook her head. "It's not. Then this laughing gas must be catching. Hi! Whoa there! Look out for the mantelpiece!" This was to Michael, who had suddenly risen from the floor and was swooping through the air, roaring with laughter and just grazing the china ornaments on the mantelpiece as he passed. He landed with a bounce right on Mr. Wig's knee. "How do you do?" said Mr. Wig, heartily shaking Michael by the hand. "I call this really friendly of you, bless my soul, I do, to come up to me since I couldn't come down to you, eh?" And then he and Michael looked at each other and flung back their heads and simply howled with laughter. "I say," said Mr. Wig to Jane as he wiped his eyes, "you'll be thinking I have the worst manners in the world. You're standing and you ought to be sitting, a nice young lady like you. I'm afraid I can't offer you a chair up here, but I think you'll find the air quite comfortable to sit on. I do." Jane tried it and found she could sit down quite comfortably on the air. She took off her hat and laid it down beside her, and it hung there in space without any support at all.